Hey, I'm golf broadcaster Matt Adams. The updated and expanded second edition of my book, The Golf Round I'll Never Forget, Golf's Biggest Stars Recall Their Finest Moments, is now available. Readers can expect to march with Arnie's Army at the 1960 U.S. Open, relive Jack Nicklaus's remarkable 1986 Masters win, and be amazed by the Tiger Slam. The Golf Round I'll Never Forget, Golf's Biggest Stars Recall Their Finest Moments. Pick it up where fine books sold, including BarnesandNoble.com and Amazon.com.
Real quick, I'm not talking.
And we're glad to join everybody. Let me try that again. We are glad that everybody has joined us on the Football's Family podcast. I want to apologize to you, my dear listeners, that I am sitting here talking with a migraine. So if you don't hear me make any sense, that's typically normal, but this is taken up a notch. But I'm going to let my guest introduce himself, and he's going to carry the show pretty much all day long today. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, everybody. First off, I am not Jeremy's migraine. I did not cause it. Okay.
That's my daughter's.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, I understand. My name is Rich Shmelter, and I wrote a book called Beasts, Bedlam, and Babes about classic drive-in movies from the late 50s to the early 80s. Jeremy and he interviewed me when I wrote a couple football books last year, and we got into talking off air about the book, Beasts, Bedlam, and Babes, that I was looking to get published. And luckily it got published, and he was telling me about his passion about, excuse me, these drive-in movies, especially The Blob from 1958. And I say gets him every time. And one thing led to another, and he wanted me to be on the show, even though, like I said, it's a football show. It's, hopefully there's a lot of football fans out there that love old drive-in movies.
Well, here's the thing, Rich, that I enjoy about this show. I call it Football's Family. Starting in the next little bit, we're going to be talking a lot about Titans football. And by the way, Jamal Adams was signed today. I don't know what that means, but he was signed today for my Titans. And of course, the Broncos are in disarray, so we'll leave them to the side. But that family part is whatever I want it to be. So today we're going to talk about drive-in movies. So let's do this. You can't see it, but I have your book, and I'm looking at one right now. Of course, I can't see you. I'm sure you can see me. It was from November 23, 1957. I was a teenage Frankenstein. Let's begin with I was a teenage Frankenstein. Okay. Before we begin, describe to people or explain to people what a B movie is. And it's not the one with Jerry Seinfeld that my kids watch.
A B movie was, at the time, it was just made low budget, and usually American International Pictures was the huge production company that did all these movies. And what they did was they wanted to cater to the teenage group, because so many people were staying home watching television. The motion picture industry was starting to go down and very concerned about it. They did not realize that they had an incredible group of people in the teenage population. And if the adults are staying at home, the teenagers didn't have time to be alone, and blah, blah, blah. So all of a sudden, hey, I got this car, which they used to call four-wheeled passion pits, and they would go to the drive-in. They could be alone and watch these movies. So they geared a lot of the movies toward teenagers. Like I was a teenage Frankenstein. And just to let everyone know, that is one of my all-time favorites. Jeremy, you nailed it. Out of the 125 entries in this book, he nailed the one that I was crazy about. I love that movie, and it has a little bit to do with the whole Frankenstein thing. But you throw Frankenstein and teenager in there, the kids were going to come out and watch the movie. Well, maybe watch the opening credits of the movie.
All right. See, this is a family show, but at the same time, this is how you make families. So I don't know how you get around that.
Exactly.
But okay. See, there was a place in Centerville, Tennessee. I'm from Hickman County, just down the road from where I am right now, called the Pink Cadillac. It's still there and it still operates. So, I mean, if you want to look it up, you'll see it. It's called the Pink Cadillac for a reason. And the one movie I remember watching there, and we'll get to the Teenage Frankenstein. I want to hear about it. Do you have that on DVD, by the way?
I had it on DVD, but you can get it on YouTube. Really.
Okay. I'll have to watch it. was True Lies with Arnold Schwarzenegger and I think Jamie Lee Curtis.
Great movie.
Yeah, it was. It's a very good movie. In the most awkward scene, I was sitting up in the front of my mom and dad. Dad was on this side. I was on this side. My mom and my sister were in the back. And Jamie Lee Curtis starts to dance. And it's not just, it's, hey, Margaret, it's seductive. I'm like, oh, great. This is why we don't come to drive-in theaters with parents. Was that type of movie that you're talking about as a teenage Frankenstein?
Yeah, it was not a foul movie. The movie, they still had a production code at that time. And then in 1968, they dropped the production code and started the rating system. So then all of a sudden these production companies could stretch the borders with, what they wanted with nudity and all, and they all try to top each other that way. That was in the 60s, the later 60s. In the 50s, they just try to just pump out everything in the later 50s, like I Was a Teenage Frankenstein, Daughter of Dracula, I Was a Teenage Caveman. Ben, I Was a Teenage Frankenstein is about a Dr. Frankenstein who's a descendant of the actual Baron von Frankenstein, or Victor Frankenstein, has this incredibly attractive fiance and all, but for some odd reason, he just wants to mess with dead body parts. And he had all these parts down in the cellar, and he wanted to regenerate humans. And it just so happens that there was an accident in front of his house, and he took somebody and regenerated them. And then all of a sudden, the young man didn't want to be like this because, his face was, looked like it looked even worse than a Frankenstein. And then he goes on a he goes on a killing spree. And of course, he goes on a killing spree with somebody in a lover's lane and all. And the funny thing is, though, Jeremy, is at the end, they have stick around for the most shocking ending. And it was like, now live in color, actual color, you get to see the Frankenstein, and the guy turns, even though you saw him in black and white for the last, 30 seconds or maybe to a minute of the movie, it was in color. And they try to do that to, capture people's attention. And it was not it was not an Academy Award winner by any stretch of the imagination, but it was just a great movie for a great time period.
Oh, here it is. Here it is. Let me see. Oh my goodness gracious. It kind of looks like just the cover. Of course, that's an amazing poster if you can get it. It kind of looks like what's that?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I have it in the book. I have all the movie posters in the book at Gentry.
It's neat. He looks really ugly.
Oh yeah.
Right underneath it is something for Oppenheimer, which is a fantastic movie. The most terrifying scene in. What do you mean by that? I don't think I can play I don't have the copyright, but I'm looking at two serious people talking about this. Whit Bisley, Phyllis, his name just popped up. I'm going to watch this in a little bit.
Oh, Jeremy, you have to.
I don't think I've lived. I was explaining to Rich here that I read his book, and that was 24 hours ago with 24 hours worth of credit for my master's program. I don't remember a lot about it. So he's going to tell us some more movies here while I listen and just enjoy it because I love his stories. So tell us, teach us.
You got it, my friend. Again, all these movies, I started the movies in 1956 with pretty much with the advent of television really taking over the masses. So the teenagers were allowed to go out and again, get to see these movies. They had a chance to be alone. And then I end it when the VCRs came into play in the early 80s. And then everybody was going back home to watch the movies when everybody had a video store up the street, if everybody remembers video stores. So that's why I think the golden age, you can always have people, whenever you talk about a golden age of something, everybody has, whether it's sports, whether it's movies, Hollywood, whatever, everybody has their different opinion on the golden age of Hollywood. My opinion on the golden age of the drive-in movies was the later 50s to early 82, 83, around there. And then again, people started to stay home again to rent a lot of these movies. and they were all geared mostly toward teenagers, where you had the teenage monsters and the sci-fi movies in the early 50s, and then it shifted over to juvenile delinquency, and then shifted over in the early 60s to beach movies, Beach Blanket Bingo and all, and then the biker genre came in. And I'll have to tell you a funny story about the biker movies genre. And then, then in the early 70s, you had the student nurses, you had the student teachers. They went into all that. Then it went back to the cheerleaders, the pom-pom girls. And one of my favorite movies, actually, I have the poster on the cover of the book. And then it went to the slasher movies in the later 70s, which I'm not really a fan of, but you had to put the slasher movies in there to appease everybody. And what I did was I attacked each of them because I didn't want to sit there and treat it like it was Gone with the Wind or Citizen Kane and say, oh, the lighting and the acting and blah, 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 everything like this. Those movies were designed to be fun. Going to the drive-in was fun. When you saw the lights coming down, I'm sorry, the stars in the sky and all, and the screen started and all. It was exciting. The concession stand was funny. You had the little snacks jumping up and down. Let's go
go to the lobby.
There you go. And actually, it's on my shirt here. A good friend of mine.
Oh, stand up. I want to see that.
Friend of mine, Alan, got me the shirt because he's a driving fanatic. Alan's awesome. He's an incredible guy. He got me this shirt, and I wanted to wear it for him because, again, he's awesome and he loves these drive-in movies. So and they all had naturally they were all serious. A lot of them weren't serious, but a majority of them were based on being serious. Like I Was a Teenage Frankenstein. Again, back to him, How to Make a Monster, but I took it all in a satirical point of view, where I just ran with it, like, come on, how stupid can this person be, or whatever. With I Was a Teenage Frankenstein, I say, your fiance is gorgeous and you're playing with body parts down in the basement. What's wrong with this? And just different things, like The Brain That Wouldn't Die, classic movie.
I saw that. I think I watched that a while back, and if I remember correctly, I might be off on this. If you watch Ernest Scared Stupid, the credit scene, I think that's featured in it. It's a giant brain in it that's floating.
Oh, no. This was the man, the doctor, his fiance, again, a fiance. They were in a hurry to get
married back then.
I know. They were in a hurry to get to a cabin, and he had a car accident. He didn't slow down, and she had, a serious injury. And he took her head and ran to this lab that he had up in the cabin, and he hooked her up to all these different things. And he was going to try to find a body to get to match the head. So her name was Jan. So she became Jan in the Pan, because they had like this, basically it was like a little cooking pan, and the actress had her head in there and she was underneath the table. And
okay, so I haven't seen that one.
No, Jeremy, you really have to. I mean, it's like I said, the thing about all this stuff is you could talk about these movies. Like I just finished a book on Marilyn Monroe, and it's like, when you talk about Marilyn Monroe or anybody else, people tend to be a little more serious. But when you talk about drive-in movies, as soon as you bring up a movie title, and I did this with Jeremy, everybody, you bring up a title of a movie, you just can't help but smile. And there's another good friend of mine, Forrest, who's just fantastic. And he says all this stuff, like I'll just go up to him just to watch him laugh and just come up like, hey, The Brain That Wouldn't Die. Did you ever see that? Or did you ever see the Swing Cheerleaders? And he just starts laughing. And it just makes you just feel good about this stuff, even though the movies are bad. And my dear wife, I love my dear wife dearly, but she can't stand these movies, and she'll watch me watching these, when I was writing the book. And she would just look, she goes, my gosh, what did I marry?
Yeah, I was going to ask you how she did it, because you have how many movies are in this book?
125.
And you watched them all.
What I did was I watched a good part of it, and then I kind of like fast forward through it and pick up on the key scenes, and then I look at the synopsis of that, and I mesh those together.
But still, 125.
I watched about 70% of the movies.
She is either very patient, very in love with you, or she left the house a lot.
She left the house a lot. Yeah, she left the house a lot. We have a casino up the street from here, and she's very popular there. And but what I would do then, and in my defense, I would take it downstairs when I do my cardio, and I would have it up on the treadmill, then I would watch a little bit, stop it, do that, do this and that. When I lift weights, I can't do that. But so at that time I had to sit and watch it. So I try to squeeze it in the morning before work or after work. I'll try to squeeze in a couple of minutes, but most of it is done when I'm doing my cardio. I'll put it up on the treadmill and watch it.
Now you mentioned your Marilyn Monroe book, which I've seen you advertise a lot, and I've tried to like it and share it as well every time you pop up. Um, her movies, were they, again, I'm having trouble thinking now, were they drive through as well, or drive in, I should say?
They were a lot of the movies, all the classic movies, you could see that they were at the drive-in. But the premise of the drive-in was to get low budget movies in there again to attract the teenage groups. But yes, Niagara was in the drive-ins. A lot of blockbuster movies. You could even look at like Ben-Hur and all that was in the drive-ins.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, it attracted more of a sophisticated crowd to the drive-in. People
Um,
married, maybe had children,
so,
and
so you're talking low budget that they're going to make their budget back for people who are just drawn in by the title.
exactly. Exactly. And again, it attracted the teenagers. And then again, you had the biker movies, like the Wild Angels, Hell's Angels on Wheels. Incredible movies, and some of them I was totally mesmerized by. I just sat and watched all in its entirety. The good thing about these movies, though, Jeremy, is most of them were like between an hour and 6 minutes and an hour and 20 minutes. So it wasn't like the blockbusters of now, where you have to sit there and watch for a long period of time.
I've sat through some long movies because I have people in my life that like it, and they have been long. Then I
Mhm.
sat through Oppenheimer. I'm like, it's done. It's just amazing because you're drawn into the story.
Right.
Um, is there any movie in there, and I'm sure there's several, that you were drawn in and you forgot what time it was? You
The
just
pom
watched the
pom,
thing.
the
What's that?
pom pom girls, the pom pom girls.
Pom Pom Girls.
I
All right.
love the pom pom girls. What else was there? My gosh, there were so many of them. I would say some of the early 80 movies. There was a movie called Firecracker. It was the first martial arts erotic thriller. Centerfold Girls. You're kind of getting, I'm trying to keep things as clean as I can, but a lot of these movies were geared toward, um,
Huh.
you know, uh, geared toward sexual,
Yeah.
you know, and as soon as they started to drop the production code and they went to the rating system. So that's why they started to push the limit on that. My all-time favorite female actress, the Queen of the Drive-Ins, Claudia Jennings. She made some great movies on Holy Rollers. Probably one of my all-time favorites, The Great Texas Dynamite Chase. I would highly recommend that. I mean, there is some racy scenes in there, but The Great Texas Dynamite Chase. She did just Fast Company. She did some incredible movies, and William Smith was the king of the biker
Oh,
movies.
you're kidding me. I know who she is, Claudia Jennings, only because I've seen the cover. I've never watched it, but Gator Bait.
Yes, Desiree Troubadour in that movie. She played Desiree Troubadour.
Okay. All right, guys. I just clarify. When you grow up in the 80s and you go to a movie store, like they didn't have a Blockbuster. They had, where I lived, it was Video Vision and Video R Us. And you walk by it, guess what they put near the front?
Gator bait.
Gator bait. And it's more in that kind of picture, it's more like jailbait. Was she legal at that
Oh
time?
no, she was legal. She was a Playboy Playmate of the Year, and she went into from the Playboy School of Acting, and she went into the movies. But she was actually a very good actress. A lot of people that came out of Playboy magazine, it was very choppy, but she really was a heck of an actress, and she just did a fantastic job in that movie. But like I said, if you get a chance to ever watch The Great Texas Dynamite Chase, that's really did a great job in that.
The Great Texas Dying. Well,
Dynamite Chase, 1976. And you had to love the poster art for all these movies. That's why I told the publisher we have to get the posters in there for each entry, because the poster art, if you've seen it in the book, the poster art is incredible.
they steal your heart and rob your bank.
Yes.
So
It
it's
was
kind
like,
of like, was that near the same time that they did, what was that Burt Reynolds movie with Dom DeLuise? Uh,
Cannonball.
Cannonball Run, was that close to that time?
It was yes, Cannonball Run, I believe, came out in 1981, if I'm not
Oh,
mistaken.
so okay, so this would have been first.
Yes, it's more of a prelude to Thelma and Louise. If you've ever seen Thelma and Louise with Susan Sarandon and Gina Davis,
Yes, I have seen that.
and it's more of a precursor to that. I think the people that did Thelma and Louise, I can't speak for them, of course, but I wonder if they were inspired by that movie.
Well, there's nothing new under the sun. It's nothing original. But what you can do is you can take, well, it's like so many, my youngest daughter today will listen to songs. I mean, just new music. I'm like, that's not new. That's from my time.
Right.
But what you could do is take something and make it better or make it newer, make it more for that time. So if Thelma and Louise used it, hey, they did a good job with it.
Oh, they really did. And like I said, the Great Texas Dynamite Chase is something that you should see. If, like I said, I always wanted to say, and my friend Alan that I was talking about, him and I always said, what would be really fun is to take, an iPad or something like that and go sit outside on the patio at night and just maybe put on a little light by the back porch and sit on your patio and just sit there on a nice summer night and watch a movie and pretend that you're at the drive-in. Now, my wife, I idolize her, but I said, why don't you come outside with me for that? She goes, no, I don't think I can do that. And she goes, oh, you're going to whine like a little schoolgirl. She goes, you're going to be getting bit by mosquitoes and be coming in here crying. She goes, you'll be out there or your allergies will bother you.
It's a lot safer indoors. Down here in Tennessee, the next few days is going to be over 100 degrees. So it's a lot safer indoors.
Yeah. Yeah. I always just kind of wanted to capture that, try to recapture that moment, so to say.
Well, they have projectors now that you can do that, but it's not the same. Because I remember growing up, of course, I think that they changed that, but they had those little speakers that you would take and you would put it on your window.
Yes. Yes.
And it sounded hollow. It didn't sound great. And
Oh
you
yeah.
had
And
to be close to it.
sometimes you would forget that it was hooked up to the car. And
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. We've seen several pulled away, and I guess that they had some, but now I think that they had it that you pull in there, you'll turn it to a certain radio station and it would work
Yes.
fine.
It was like I said, there were some great movies. Movie Ruby about it. It's I went to actually see Ruby at the drive-in theater, and it was one of my favorites. I had to put it in there, and about this lady who her and her fiance, he's a gangster and he gets gunned down by his own people, and then she gives birth to this child who has some problems, and she becomes possessed by the father's spirit, so to say, and she runs a drive-in, and it takes place in 19 supposed to take place in 1951. Now the movie was made in 77, but it's supposed to take place in 51. But as people are driving into the drive-in theater, they have the ad for the Attack of the 50-Foot Woman, which was made in 1958. So, it's like nobody really seemed to really care much about, that type of stuff. Like, don't worry about it. Nobody's going to care.
That,
But
by the way, I've seen the Attack of the 50-Foot Woman. I don't want to make her mad. The thing about these movies that I'm seeing right here, Rich, is that the lighting is awful. It just looks dark.
oh yeah, yeah. It's what they used a lot of times was they used film on some of these. So the film wasn't very good. They tried to get away with as cheap as they could. Actually, there's a man, Roger Corman, incredible director. He just recently passed. He was 98 years old, and he started all these movies. And he would try to make the movies as cheap as he could. And he made a bet with this friend of his that said, I can make the cheapest movie ever. And they're like, there's no way you can do it. I think I forgot how much he came in at with this movie. It was with a lady named Candace Rialson in 1976 called Hollywood Boulevard. And he made this movie so cheap. He got a bunch of totally unknowns with the exception of her. She was just up and coming. She was kind of with Claudia Jennings, kind of competing it for the queen of the drive-ins. And with the exception of her, everybody else was just low budget people, not low budget human beings, just low budget actors and actresses. And what he did was he just took it was a movie, it was a story about a movie, a production company. So what he did was he just took old stock footage from old movies and brought it into there. He just filled the time in with that. So that was very cheap. He owned the rights to all these movies. He didn't have to pay anybody for it. and he got away with it. So you're watching this movie and just see a bunch of retread stuff in there, but yet it captivated you. And you got the one movie, The Beast from Haunted Cave. They didn't know how to capture like a beast at that time, so they took a tin can, put little holes in it, and just shot the camera through it and just moved the camera so it looked like that's what the beast was seeing. And it was just great stuff. And I have a great story. I love to tell this story. My dear dad, God bless him. We used to go to this one place, when you used to be able to go out with a family and it was a treat, not a way of living. And it was a Saturday night in the summer, and they say, hey, we're going to go down to this actual drive-in restaurant that was next to the drive-in. Now if you were on a certain angle, you could see the drive-in screen. So they were actually showing a biker movie. I don't know the name of the biker movie, but I was about 10 years old. I didn't really know what I was looking at, but I was like, okay, but all of a sudden my folks were, he's awfully quiet back there. And my dad looked, he saw on the screen was this young lady with no attire on at all, and she's riding on the back of this motorcycle. And it was like, my dad elbowed my mother, and my mom looked, they were startled, and my dad, turn around. So I turned around, but I noticed my dad, after trying to give me a lesson, so to say, I saw him and like this, and he was adjusting the rearview mirror so he could see the screen. So
Oh,
my dad. I love telling that story. But yeah,
it's like do as I say, not as I do.
That as I do. And and as the years went on and I brought that up to him, and he would just smile and laugh. He goes, well, I wasn't stupid. He goes, hey, I had to take care of you. You know what I mean? But I was the parent, I wanted to see this, but yeah, he's adjusting the rearview mirror just so he could see that screen. So I said that in another interview with somebody, and it was just a funny story. And I just love that story when you bring up drive-in movies.
Well, before we run out of time, my youngest just walked in here. Hey, say hi to Mr. Rich.
Hi, sweetie.
Love you. Go home.
Mama's cooking.
Oh. I don't know how to mute. I'm sorry, folks. This is not going to be edited out. I don't edit very much. Go
Don't
home.
worry about it. Your daughter's adorable.
Love you too. She think. All right, get out of here. All
She's
right.
adorable.
Sorry about that, folks. If I knew how to mute that, I would have, but that is oh, there's the mute button right there. Tuesday marked 9 years since we adopted her.
Oh.
Yeah, she's Latina, so she's the only one in our household that can tan. She'll tell you that. She's like,
Yeah.
Daddy, I can tan, you can't. I was like, I'm Scottish in origin. We fry. That's all there is to it. So, but anyway, what was it gonna, okay, before we cut it off, because I told him we have, yep, there it is right there. It pops up. That's 10 minutes. I want you to do me 2 things real quick, actually 3 things real quick. And you'll need to send this to me in an email so I can put this on the show notes. Where can we get this book?
Okay, you can get it virtually in any bookstore, if there's any bookstores left. Apparently there are, because they're showing a lot of them on online. You can get it in any bookstore. If they don't have it in stock, they can order it for you. And of course, Amazon. You can go to Amazon for it. I will send you the link for Amazon on it. It does come in hard copy. It does come in paperback, and it comes in ebook.
I got up because I've read your book on the Oakland Raiders, the one you wrote on that. But this one right here, The Chicago Assassin, is my favorite that you've written.
Oh, thank you, Jeremy.
Maybe I love the history part of it, and I'm not familiar with Prohibition, and that helped me out. Most people are like me. We know the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. We know about all the stuff going on in Chicago, especially where I grew up. It was down there, but no one ever spoke about it.
Mm-hmm.
But that is my favorite book, The Chicago Assassin, Jack McGurn, and that's an awesome book. And I think we did an episode on that particular book, didn't we?
Yes, we did a few years ago.
Yeah, we did. Okay, so you'll send me a link. It'll be in the show notes. Also, send me a link to the Marilyn Monroe book, if you would, please.
I sure will.
So we'll get all that out. Now, before we end, we're going to talk a little football.
Okay,
Now,
because this is a football show.
it is a football show, and I've got you on, and I love your opinions on things. I think it's obvious I'm a Titans fan, but my Broncos have been around since a long time. I'm not looking at either one of those teams doing very well this year. Although I think the Titans can surprise people, the Broncos will not. They've eaten $85 million in cap space, dead money for the next 2 years because of the Russell Wilson thing. I'm looking at your Raiders as a dark horse for a playoff run.
Now, how can I even insult you with the Broncos? I mean, yeah, after saying the kind words like that about my beloved Raiders.
I think that they will do that. The only problem is, and again, I've got recently, I think Athlon came out or Street Smith came out, and I bought the book and I haven't read it yet. We're going to do one probably next week. I'm going to do a deep dive in that book, in that magazine. Who is your starting quarterback this year?
They're saying it's going to be Aiden O'Connell.
I like him. I like him.
I think he can be a very good game manager. I saw him do a great job against Kansas City. Of course, Josh Jacobs tore through the whole Kansas City defense that day, but on Christmas Day. But I believe he's a good game manager. I think he can do very well. He's got some great targets. He's got that young tight end, that draft pick from Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
And, Devontae Adams, I mean, incredible talent. And I think, and with Max Crosby on that defensive line, I mean, Max Crosby, I said this a few years ago, and I know it's going to sound like, yeah, right, false bravado, but I really meant it. Was people that know me that I've said this a few years ago. I really thought at that time that he could be the next Howie Long, and he's really starting to really live up to that reputation.
You know what I think is funny about Max Crosby? You compare him to a Joey Bosa with physique, and there's no comparison. He looks like he has a dad bod, but if you ever watch Max Crosby play, that joker is fast, he is strong, he is smart, and he is doggone scary.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
And I think if I watched the game last year, was it against the Chiefs? He dominated that O-line the entire game.
He did. He had Patrick Mahomes crying on the sideline.
Yeah, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
And who did they add this year that made that, I think it was a defensive tackle. Again, I'm not familiar with it.
It was, and please forgive me, I can't remember. I have a Raiders podcast that I do on the Raiders history that I do from September through January. And after that, I kind of shut it down a little bit. And I've been busy with these, the Drive-In Project and Maryland Project, and I'm looking on finishing up some other projects. So I'm kind of a little sketchy right now on professional football. So
I do love it. Love your podcast. I listen to it every time it pops up here.
Oh, thank you.
No, it's my pleasure to listen to it. Brock Bowers to me is a very, very good tight end. I think, and I'm looking at them right now, Devontae Adams will probably be traded. If they're smart, they would get what they can out of him. I don't want that. Let's see, who was it that they signed this year? And
So embarrassed, I can't remember.
No, it's okay. You're like me. We're going to get back into it pretty soon. Gardner Minshew, I love that dude. Is it's something else. That is the manliest man in football.
I think he'll give O'Connell a run for his run for his money.
I still don't know why he doesn't have an starting gig yet. I think he is a better player than they give him credit for, but maybe he just can't sustain it all year round. No, I can't find him, but I do know that they have somebody that they signed that makes that defensive line even scarier than it was.
They were just telling me about it today at work, and I'm so embarrassed. I cannot remember. Like I said, I shut it down, with the Raiders, because, you kind of decompress a little bit. You can't be all the time like that. So I shifted, to my other media interests and everything like that until the show starts up again. And so, actually next week I'm doing a special with the Raiders in Hollywood history with the host of Raiders Fan Radio. So I'm going to be doing that. So I'm going to be getting a little bit back into it, now, and then I'll be starting up in September again. but I can't, for the life of me, I can't remember. And I'm
Well,
sure.
we're gonna get messages. Yeah, we'll get messages on this. I can't believe y'all didn't know that. You know what? There's a good chance I don't know a lot more than I'm letting on. So it's just fall in the line. Brother, you are not only my friend, I love you. I enjoy your stuff. You're a great writer and you're an even better person. And the thing that you and I both have something in our lives that have connected us that are not necessarily the best thing to ever happen to either one of us.
Yes.
So I'm not bringing that up, but you know exactly what I'm talking about. So no matter where we go in life, you and I are going to be connected.
Unfortunately, it's a fraternity you don't want to be in.
No, you don't. I'll tell you a story, Rich, before we shut off. I did a funeral 2 weeks ago. I knew this couple. I've known them for a couple years. They had a baby. She was sick and really sick. In fact, she died at 15 months old. And they asked me to do the funeral. And I couldn't look. I did the funeral because I wanted to help them. But the first thing I got up to do when I said it is, guys, the last thing that you need to say is, I know what you're going through. Don't
Yes.
ever, ever, ever say that to a person who has lost anyone, much less a child,
Mhm.
because you don't. No matter if you lost a child or not, you don't know what we're going through. So I guess in life, just be kinder than you realize that you need to be, because you never know how you can affect people. And again, that's part of what it is here on Football's Family, Rich, is that we can joke, we can poke fun at each other. And you and I have had some doozies where but nothing personal. Nobody's taking anything personal. Just
Right.
enjoy life and be kind to people.
That's that's the whole thing. And when you hear somebody, if you actually touch somebody that you have no idea on, and they come back and say something kind about you. So I helped this lady who's a wife of somebody that I work with, wrote a book, and I encouraged her as she was going on, and she made a special phone call to me, to her husband, to tell me, she wanted to put me on the phone just to say how much I influenced her that way. And I was shocked. And for me to be speechless is really saying a lot. But and everybody that knows me would say, yeah, that's true. But I was touched by that. And sometimes you just don't know how much you touch people. But like you said, smile.
Smile. Thank you all for listening. We're about to be kicked off. Thank you. Thank you, Rich. Hey, call me when we're off for just a second.
Okay.
All right. Bye-bye. Thank you all for listening.
Hey there, sports history fan. This is Arnie Chapman, aka the Football History Dude, and I hope that you enjoyed this recent episode presented by the Sports History Network and were able to learn some good old-fashioned sports history knowledge nuggets. I started the Sports History Network back in 2020 with the mission to help podcasters find a community of like-minded sports history nerds, as well as helping aspiring podcasters to start their own shows. We have a little bit over 30 shows on the network right now covering all sorts of sports history. But as far as I'm concerned, we're just at the toothpick in the ocean moment, that can't even figure it out because there's so much more coming. We wanted to create the ultimate headquarters for sports yesteryear, starting with Podcast Network and our website, but we're going to continue to move into other mediums as well. And here's the cool part, because we want you to be part of our team. So if you're interested in starting your own podcast, or maybe being a guest on one of our shows, or who knows, maybe even writing an article for us over on the website. Seriously, all you gotta do is reach out to us on the contact page over at sportshistorynetwork.com. You can be as technologically savvy as a Neanderthal tapping on a stone trying to figure out this whole hieroglyphics thing back in the day. Again, it doesn't matter, because even if you don't understand the whole podcast space, we have a production team that can pretty much help you out with doing everything. All you gotta do, head over to sportshistorynetwork.com, head to the contact page, fill it out. That message goes right to me, and I'll reach out to you as soon as I can. But for now, dude, I'm through if you're through.